a letter in from Willie and Joseph. There was an envelope.
Okay. So we'll start now. And we'll start, I guess, wait, hold on. Okay. Should we start talking about your parents we'll start talking about your parents and then the town that you lived in, just like we did with Opa.
Yeah.
Something like that, okay. Let me just move this closer. Okay, so why don't you start by telling us your parents' names?
My parents were Sally Haas and Lena Haas. Her maiden name was Oppenheimer.
Okay. And how did they always live in the town that you grew up in Königshofen?
They didn't always live there, but my mother lived there maybe from the age of 10 or so. That's when her father bought the house where we lived, where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And he moved in from a nearby village where my mother and all her siblings were born.
What was that? Do you remember that?
There was Trappstadt.
Trappstadt. Okay.
Yeah.
How far away was that?
Maybe 10 kilometers or something like that, approximately.
Mm-hmm. And what brought them there?
Well, they had a business. I don't know what the store or how it looked. And my grandfather bought the house and started the business.
Mm-hmm.
Or moved the business, I'm not sure which, to Königshofen.
You're not sure if he had the business in the other...
He probably did have the business because it was a big house, so he wouldn't buy a house like that if he didn't have a business to
start
put it in there,
right. So what year was that they moved? Do you know that?
In the late 1890s, between 1895, 1898 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was your mother's family?
Yes.
And so the whole family moved. She was, 10 years old, you said?
My mother was maybe around 10.
Around 10.
Yes.
Okay. And then your father?
My father was born in Oberelsbach, and he went to school there, and then he went for a short time to a school to prepare for Hebrew studies. But then he became an apprentice, I don't think it was my grandfather's business, in somebody else's business. And then he worked for my grandfather, and this is how he got to marry my mother.
Uh-huh. So wait, he had always been in that town in Königshofen? He was born there?
No, he was born in Oberelsbach.
That's what you said, okay.
Yeah.
And when did he move?
This I don't know, probably at the age of 15 or 14.
Was that to join your grandfather's store?
No, you had an apprenticeship of 3 years, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure where he had this. And then he worked as a salesperson in my grandfather's store.
Okay, so he got to Königshofen because the store was there and he was looking for a job,
yes.
Presumably. Okay, and how far away was the town that he was from?
Maybe 40 kilometers or so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was a village.
Okay. And then he met your mother working in the store.
Yeah,
right.
Yes.
Uh-huh. So, and then when they got married, I guess they immediately settled in Königshofen.
Right.
They bought their own house, or they moved in?
No, that's where they lived, in that house.
In that same house?
Yes. My parents got married in 1911.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1940, it was very common for more generations to live together.
Mm-hmm.
In 1914, my father was taken into the German army. It was the First World War.
This is 3 years after he got married.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he had 2 children. My parents had 2 children at that time, my
Mm-hmm.
sister and my brother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And My grandfather died in 1917.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether he came home in 1917 or 1918. 18 was, the war was over.
Okay.
And then he was the boss.
Uh-huh.
But my grandmother lived in the house until she died.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think I remember her. I was about 2 years old when she died.
Uh-huh. Now, your grandfather died of natural causes?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And and now of your your mother's siblings,
Yes.
they were also all living in that house? Or were
No,
they married?
she was the youngest. Everybody was out, and I'm sure everybody was married already.
And married and out on their own?
Right.
Also living in Königshofen?
Nobody in Königshofen.
They all moved to other villages?
Yes.
In the area, I guess.
Not always, not necessarily in the area. Her oldest sister moved very far away to the other end of the country.
Uh-huh.
Because her husband, the man she married, had a job there.
Uh-huh.
He was a teacher, shochet, and I guess that's it.
Right.
Chassen,
Mm-hmm.
cantor.
Mm-hmm. Where was that? What town was that?
Where did they live?
Yeah.
In Silesia, Schlesien.
That was also Germany.
It was Germany. It is now probably Poland.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the others, what would you say? There were 7 siblings, right?
No, 6.
6. Okay. And
One died young, but that was the oldest. The other brother, he married somebody from Königshofen,
mm-hmm.
and they lived in Lichtenfels.
Uh-huh. That was also in Germany?
That was in Germany.
Okay.
And then the next one was my uncle, who lived in Nuremberg.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an aunt who lived in Feuchtwangen,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where her husband was from.
Mm-hmm.
They had a store there.
Also Germany?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So basically they were all over the place, and your parents lived in Königshofen, and you were born after World War I? What year were you born?
I was born in 1922.
Mm-hmm.
World War I was over in 1918.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so from 1918 on, you said your father sort of ran the store. It was...
No, it wasn't a brand new store.
No, he ran the store.
He ran the store, yes.
The store, right. Okay. And who worked in the store? Did he have employees?
Yes, we had quite a few employees, and it was customary. They went out to visit customers in outlying villages and even cities,
mm-hmm.
brought in the orders, and then they were shipped out, and they went on a regular basis. Everybody had their own customers.
Mm-hmm. What kind of merchandise did the store
we had
sell?
Piece goods and some ready-mades, like fabric for men's suits,
mm-hmm.
and ladies' dresses, and also towels, sheets, and that kind of thing.
So it was all textile kind of things,
all
clothing.
Textiles, yes.
Mm-hmm. And you said, so they actually delivered to neighboring towns and cities?
No, well, I think it was usually shipped with like parcel post or so,
mm-hmm.
and people bought on credit. That's
mm-hmm.
why we were very well liked, because they could get credit.
That was unusual for other stores?
No, other stores did it also.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the people were good, and they paid before they ordered again.
Mm-hmm. Were the customers mostly Jewish or not Jewish?
No,
or?
not Jewish.
Mostly not Jewish.
I don't think there were any Jewish customers in the one from outside. Maybe some Jewish people came once or twice, when they needed something to the store to buy.
Mm-hmm. And was Königshofen like a place of commerce? Were there other businesses?
Yes.
It was a busy kind of place?
Yes.
Also textile?
Textiles, shoe stores, grain business.
So it was less like
And
a quiet little.
We had also cattle dealers.
Uh-huh.
That was quite common.
So there
And
was lots of cattle.
Hardware store, Jewish hardware store, shoes.
Was it a spread out place where there was lots of grazing area for cattle? Like people kept their.
No, they kept it within the confines, usually in stables.
Mm-hmm. How big was Königshofen? How many people lived there? Do you know?
At that time, it was about 2,000 inhabitants, and after the Second World War, when there was East and West Germany, it grew to over 10,000.
Uh-huh.
Lots of people moved in.
Mm-hmm. And it was, would you describe it more of as like a small, quiet village, or it was a city almost?
No, it wasn't a city, it was a town more.
Mm-hmm.
And we were not far from Bad Kissingen, which was world famous. But we also had a spa there, and later on, not while I was living there, but later on this was all built out, and the name was changed to Bad Königshofen, which is the same as Baden.
Baden, Bath.
I had Bath, and this is also Bad is Bath.
So that was the first thing you had in common with Opa.
Well, that's one. No, we have other things in common.
That was the first thing you had in common.
I don't know.
Chronologically, at least.
Oh, chronologically, maybe yes.
Okay. And what was the Jewish community in Königshofen like? Were there a lot of Jews?
There were about maybe 20 families. At the height of the thing, there were maybe 40 families, but people moved to larger cities. The young people moved out, so it didn't grow, it shrank.
Mm-hmm. And was there more than one shul there?
No, there was one shul and a synagogue. I may have a picture, I have to look, I didn't think of that.
Right.
And the community owned a house where there was schoolrooms, maybe one or two. The upstairs was rented, and there was a mikveh in that building, in the community-owned.
In the community-owned house.
House, yeah.
Now the shul was like structurally a big shul, or was it small?
Yes, that was not that old. I don't know just when it was built. Maybe before the First World War.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and there was a town rabbi?
No, we didn't have a rabbi in the city because it was a small community. Mm-hmm. But there was a rabbi, and it was like for the county of a whole area. And he came to visit maybe once or twice a year, I don't remember how often, for a Shabbat. And he also probably went to the other communities.
Right, a traveling rabbi.
Yeah. No, he was stationed.
Where did he live?
Burg Breppach.
Which was a bigger area, a bigger community?
I've never been there, but they had a school that prepared you to become a teacher or other things that you would use if you work for the community, maybe chazan or so. That's where my father studied for a very short time. He didn't care for it, so he became apprenticed to the business.
Now, what was you mentioned there was a school, the community had this house which had classrooms. That was a full-time school? Was it a yeshiva?
No, nothing like that. We had a 1 hour a day Hebrew school. It was a Hebrew school. We learned history, which you'd call Tanakh.
Right.
Reading. No writing. I still don't know how to write. And Chumash,
right,
which is also probably part of Tanakh, and different grades at different hours, and that was usually a release from the public school, or sometimes we came at 8 o'clock because public school maybe started at 9, so we'd go from 8 to 9, or we would go from 11 to 12.
Like during the lunch hour?
No, 12 o'clock was lunch hour. They had religious instruction. It was mostly Catholic, but also some Protestants. the Protestants also were released, but the Catholics had religious instructions within the public school system.
Uh-huh.
We didn't know about separation of church and
Right.
state.
Right. So this was all, and the public schools were government run. These were government schools.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And the public schools, was there like one public school for Königshofen, or there was one for a bunch of villages in the area?
No. Königshofen had their own schools. We had more than one. In one place there was the lowest grade, and then it was in different buildings. I don't even think that we had at that time one building for all the different classes.
Mm. Now, with 20, you said there were, 20 or 30 families in Königshofen?
Yeah, maybe 22,
Orthodox ones.
24.
So the Hebrew school was probably pretty small. There were not very many students there.
No.
Just the
My
2 or
grade,
3
we
per
had
grade.
5 Jewish children,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a very large class.
Uh-huh. Now, and what about other Jewish communal type of things? Was there a shochet in town, or?
There was somebody in town, a teacher, shochet, chassan.
This is one person?
One person,
Uh-huh.
only one person.
And he covered all those bases. And you would bring him your chickens, or he would sell
I
chickens?
don't remember whether maybe we brought him to that building. I don't remember really.
Mm-hmm. Right. Trying to think, I've taken notes. Now, I know in Germany in general, I know that was where the reform movement started, and there was a whole. Was there anything like that going on in Königshofen?
That was in the cities more.
Uh-huh.
The small towns
just
didn't have it. We had most of the stores closed on Shabbos.
Mm-hmm.
One was openly open. It was just like every other day. But the others were closed. Some of them you could buy if you went in the side entrance. And there were very few where you couldn't buy on Shabbos. So
that was even among the Orthodox, so-called Orthodox.
Everybody
people.
was in the same shul. They were all, except for that one family actually, everybody would be called Orthodox and Shomer Shabbos.
Right.
They all had kosher. The one family, I'm not sure whether they had kosher.
Uh-huh. So there were just different levels of observance among those people, you're saying?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Did the Jews in Königshofen, they interacted with the non-Jews at all, or it was sort of they kept themselves?
Yes.
Even socially, they would.
Well, my father belonged to the athletic club, Turnverein, or so.
Mm-hmm.
I think he paid dues. I don't think, maybe, and they had dances at that time, just like Young Israel had in the United States.
Right.
And they would go to these affairs. We did not interact with that. We went to people's homes.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
nobody invited us to have coffee and cake, and we didn't invite them for coffee and cake. If we did, it was somebody Jewish.
Right. But and the Jews and the non-Jews, it sounds like they got along, basically. You didn't sense anti-Semitism or anything like that on their part.
Well, it depends when. Now, in 1923, when Hitler had his first, when there was a putsch in Munich, in Königshofen, they already had apportioned who gets this Jew's house and who gets that Jew's house.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, the whole thing failed. And then things were all right again.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when I learned about the putsch in school, I asked something of my father, and we were outside, so he hushed me and said, "Not here, not here." I couldn't talk about that.
Right. And then, okay, so that was 1923, and then thing.
Hitler, well, then that was the first time he tried to come to power.
Right.
And in 1933 he was elected.
Right. Now, and then at that point, you started sensing among the other people in the town anti-Semitism again? Or?
Not so much the town. In fact, my father had customers who told him, "You don't have to go away. As long as we have a piece of bread, you'll have a piece of bread with us." Because he also traveled and sold, and he had very, very good friends outside of Königshofen, and they liked him, and they considered him like one of the family. And they felt they could take, of course they couldn't have taken care of him.
Right. These were non-Jewish people, you're saying?
Non-Jewish
right.
people.
Right. And then what, I guess, moving on to 1933, once Hitler was elected.
Yeah.
I think I covered everything pretty much in terms of the town. But once Hitler came to power now in 1933, how soon was it until there were noticeable changes in Königshofen?
Business positively went down a lot. As far as I know, I can't tell you because I was too young to be in the business.
Right.
But it was okay. I mean,
business went.
I think that my father still made a living at that time.
Did he talk to you about this kind of stuff, or he sort of kept the children out of his problems?
You were very afraid to talk because what if a child talks outside?
Right.
Which I never did, but
right.
some children do.
Right. How old were you now in 1933?
11.
11. So you were old enough to sort of be aware of what was going on.
Right. Oh, school changed. And
school changed. You were still able to go to classes in the public school?
Yes, I went all through 7th grade or 8th grade. I'm not sure what.
So for another few years.
It was very unpleasant because we had some teachers who made remarks, and I mean they could, it was all right.
Were they actually teaching the racist theories in school?
They did that. Okay, we had school in Germany 7 days a week, Monday through Saturday. Saturday we went to services, to synagogue in the morning, and after services we had to come to school. But after Hitler we didn't have to come anymore, because I think that day they taught all about National Socialism. But before that, we were sitting in school. We didn't write. But we were sitting there and listened to whatever lessons that were going on.
Right. That was by law, or that was sort of just
that was by law. There was 7 days a week
school. Right.
6 days, excuse me. Sunday they didn't. We had school on Sunday, Hebrew school. 2 hours, I think.
Okay. So this is what would go on every Saturday, and you weren't there. And then Monday, Monday morning, you'd show up in school. And they would have just been learning about their national social.
I don't think we missed anything.
Right. But they probably weren't as nice to you then,
No, it was very common to be called Sauyut. That's dirty true.
Right. And then when was it first that things actually changed legally?
Legally in 1933. Now there were some people who had... In Königshofen actually was only one case, somebody who had a boyfriend who was not Jewish woman. I don't know what happened. I think he disappeared. He left Germany, and I think she went afterwards. But in the city, there was a lot of assimilation, and it was really, really bad. They could put you into Dachau, into concentration camp for what you call Rassenschande, that you associate with a different people.
Right.
Like here they had the difference between blacks and whites.
Right. Now, and so we're talking about 1933, and other than that thing...
Well, in 1933 it started, and like I said, I think my father still made a living. And my sister, who worked in the store, left in 1936, I think. 36 or 7, for America. It was very difficult with affidavits at that time. It wasn't that you could just come here and you're here.
Right. How did she get an affidavit?
She got an affidavit from an aunt, not my aunt or her aunt, my aunt's sister, Aunt Carrie, who helped numerous people. Very many people. She lived on 145th Street in Manhattan, which was a very Jewish area at that time.
So why was your sister able to go and not everyone else?
Because it was very difficult.
So she was sort of first to...
My cousin wanted to go to Israel, Palestine in 1933. They left Germany in 1933, and he wanted my father to go with them, and my father said, I can't, I have too much money outstanding, I have to collect first. So they went to England. He was a doctor, and the wife, my cousin, was a doctor, and they went through the whole thing there. They had to go back for exams and everything, even though they had been working for quite a number of years as doctors. And anyway, my father tried to get money in without giving more credit to go out. And my sister left, like I think, 36 or 37. In 38, my brother left. But after I think my sister was 36. And I think we sold the house and the business probably in 37, because we sold before my brother left. And we had 3 rooms, 2 rooms and 1 room that we used as a kitchen. And we shared the bathroom with the new owner.
Okay. Oh wait, so then you were still living in that house?
We were living in that house.
Even after the business and the house
we
were sold?
It.
So you
we sold the business and the house, that was one thing.
Right.
And
the new owner moved into the house also? So you were literally sharing...
It was a big house. It was a big house.
How big was it?
How many rooms?
Yeah.
We had a very large dining room that the new owner used. We had a very large living room that my parents used. And the adjoining bedroom, which was my parents' room. Then after that there were 2 more bedrooms. And across the hall was kitchen and bathroom and toilet. Bathroom and toilet were separate rooms.
Okay.
So we could still use the toilet.
So you literally were living with this new owner. The new owner was not Jewish.
No.
Not Jewish, right?
No.
What Jew would buy a business in 1937?
No, of course not.
Right.
We had to sell because we could see what was coming.
Right.
So that was, I think, in 37, and my brother left just before Hitler went into Austria.
So just to clarify, the new owner, the arrangement was he rented out half the house to you?
We didn't rent. We had the right to live there. Like if you sell a house and you have settlement today, you can make arrangements that you stay for a certain length of time. Okay.
So this was an indefinite arrangement, or the idea was that you weren't going to be...
I don't know that. Those were legal things. I mean...
Right. Okay. So for some point you were living with this...
Actually separate. It was a big house.
Right. Okay. And he was operating the store. You had nothing to do with the store anymore.
No, we had nothing to do with the store. So that's why when the Kristallnacht was, our house had no damage. It wasn't Jewish owned anymore.
Interesting.
So we were living there, and they came up to they knew everything.
Right.
They came up and they took my father to prison.
Oh wait, I'm running out of time on the tape. I gotta switch tapes.